It's January, it's cold, and I am back here at Guy Wolff Pottery with my good friend Guy Wolff. And this
Welcome.
thank you. So nice to be here. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be making many, many flower pots in this beautiful workroom. This is the time of year when you make a lot of stuff.
This is the beginning of the season.
Yes.
So from now until sort of April 15th is just kicking to make pots. And then some April 15th to about, say, June 15th, the gardeners are very, very hungry for the pots. So we have to work very, very hard to get everything ready.
And I love this time of year because it means that it's kind of quiet working time.
Yes.
And Guy and I will be at the wheels, and sometimes we'll start singing together, all kinds of things like old Welsh tunes, but also Patsy Cline, which is so much fun. I just love coming here.
Diana Durbin.
Oh, Deanna Durbin,
Okay.
the golden voice of Deanna Durbin. Oh,
It's a very high voice.
one of my favorite CDs that we have over there. Now, I wanted to share something with everyone out there that you revealed to me, and I had no idea about this. When I first walked in here and I looked at your red flower pots, to me they were this simple red flower pot.
Right.
Which, interestingly, if someone walks into a hardware store in New York, they can buy a simple red flower pot. It goes like this, and it has a rim.
A heavy rim.
Yes.
That's called a chime ring, and the reason that was made was so that the pots could be stacked on top of each other in the furnace. Sadly, those aren't very pretty.
Exactly. And that my first year of coming here, when I would poke around and just look at what was for sale, I thought, look at how simple that red flower pot is, but look at how beautiful it is. And there was one year when Guy said, oh, you know about the system, right? And
Right. So the English system of doing horticultural wares really goes back to the problem that in the early years of making glass, it was hand blown.
yeah,
So if you imagine that somebody's hand blowing a small 4x4 piece of glass, and you're then making
a greenhouse.
a greenhouse out of it, it's incredibly expensive to do. So the space inside of that building is very expensive real estate. Besides anything else, if it's really a hot house, that means you have a staff keeping it warm.
Like for in England, for growing oranges or lemons, like tropical things in the winter, which the very wealthy did, right?
Right. Well, we have John Bartram, who had a greenhouse in Philadelphia starting from 1735.
Really?
At the same time, there was a guy named William Hamilton, who also had a greenhouse there. Now, as far as making the least amount of space possible, 1805, the Royal Hort came up with this idea. And this I learned about from a guy named Jim Keeling, who has the most wonderful pottery shop on the Oxfordshire, Warwickshire border in Great Britain. And he's done some really wonderful research into all this stuff. So 1805, the Royal Hort is saying we have to standardize. So standardize what? Well, there are all these different plants that have different shaped root balls. So how is that root ball going to take the least amount of space in the thing? So if it's a tall thing, you're going to have a long tom. So this is the tallest of the English pots. If somebody comes in and asks me what this is for, I'll say, because I don't know anything about gardening, I'll say, maybe a carrot. You know, I don't know. I know that the gardeners who are, what do you call it? Herb gardeners like long toms a lot. So I don't know why.
So, but this is really because whatever the plant has, like a long
Root.
like a carrot is a root.
Yes. Or an amaryllis bulb does really well in here. I know that from Martha Stewart. One of her special people told us that long toms were good for that. But so from that, the most standard flower pot in the history of gardening is called the full pot.
Okay.
Full. And full pot means complete.
Full.
Full.
Okay, now.
So, or standard. Full just means standard.
So this is the pot that someone would say, oh, this is the flower pot shape.
Everybody had these.
And everyone, even today, knows this shape as a flower pot.
Right. So I had you take a picture of a Regency period salesman selling plants somewhere in posh London.
Like 1815-ish.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the same thing. You could go back into the 1700s. This shape is at John Bartram's in 1735. It's even, it's early. This goes way back. This is the standard of standard flower pots.
A full pot.
Full pot. Now, the most exciting one of these, here, put that on top of that one. So, my era, we have the Beatles.
Yeah.
So in Great Britain in 1820, as important as Mary Pickford or Douglas Fairbanks or Frank Sinatra was the yellow primrose, an auriculus. That was so important that this size, a number 2 wet pounds of clay, if a pot this size at 6 inches, they were so popular for auriculus. This ended up just calling it an auriculus pot. They made a theater of it. It would be a bank of yellow primroses.
And guess who made this pot? I was like, who made this nice pot? And I looked on the bottom. Oh, there's an RS on the bottom. One time when I was here, there was a bunch of red clay that we were going to recycle. And I thought I would just like to make that standard, beautiful shape and work on that. So I think I made 100 of these. But there's something so aesthetically pleasing about this. And
so it goes back to the whole thing of how you find motion in a line. So my father used to talk about the Greek straight curve. There's a little bit of an arch, a dome here, and then from here through that line, that's all an arch. So it looks like a straight line, but it's not.
And that is what the example that I learned from the Greeks in art school was the Parthenon. The columns of the Parthenon
Are stronger.
are if you're down in Athens and you're looking up at the Acropolis, those columns would just look like they're tapering up. But if they were actually a straight line, they would look like they were curving in the wrong way. So they actually, when they were built bowed out slightly so that from a distance they looked straight.
And architecturally, they are stronger. I mean, that's the other exciting thing. So if you look at this grouping here, these are fired in the furnace like that.
They're stacked like this.
Yep. Actually, the other way around. But the point is that they can take that weight because of the little bit of motion that's in the line here. So it's also for frugality that you get away with that.
Now that aspect of the pot, like not just being a straight side and it having like a dome, a curve, an arch, and a dome, Guy has been talking about this to me for the last 13 years, since I started coming here.
It's a Dorian line, and you can see it in your hand. If you just hold up your hand, there is like an arch down here going into, this is actually a dome here, and then an arch that's pointing at the top. So everything you need to know about what's in the line of that flower pot's right there in the shape of your hand. So, but if we take this pot and cut it in half and make a squat pot, and then we have a half pot, which is half of a full pot.
So this is 9 pounds of clay.
Right.
So 9 pounds of clay made into a full pot would be this shape. It would be taller, but half of that is basically this. It's this shape.
It's all about proportion. I mean, this is as good as talking about the Parthenon. It's just so much fun. Look at the top of these. It's pretty close to being the same.
Yeah, the size of the top.
The size of the top.
The opening. They're the same.
Yeah.
But it's the proportions of the bottom to the wall.
Yeah.
And this also goes back to like what's being planted in here, right?
Exactly.
Like some plants would prefer to be in a taller pot. Some plants would prefer to be in a shorter squatter pot.
So, when we have gardeners coming in here, once you get into these bigger pots, they really start going for half pots because when you get into a bigger one like this, you have so much depth anyway, so you can multi-plant in something like this. This guy here is a 24.
That's a 24 half pot.
Yes, and so 6 pounds of clay equals 1 gallon.
Okay.
So this is a 4-gallon flower pot.
If we go back to sort of the in a greenhouse, the first thing when you're starting with the seeds, this fascinated me. Guy pulled this out, that this thing without the little pots in it, this is called a
Seed pan.
a seed pan. So when I started seeds, I would go to the nursery and buy this hideous plastic black tray
Called a flat.
called a flat, and I sprinkle the seeds in there. But look at this beautiful thing.
So Queen Victoria really liked the idea of ornamentation on the side of these seed pans. So this has Greek key on the side and just a thing saying Wolff Pottery.
Now, would the seed pan have had holes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so the soil goes in here. They scattered the seeds on here, and then when the seeds actually sprouted, pulling out the individual plants and then transferring them, they would be transferred into, look at these beautiful little tiny baby pots. Another aspect of this that you revealed to me that I found fascinating blew my mind. Once I was making, not once, many times, who am I kidding? I was making pots here, and Guy would come over and just go like this, and he'd go, that rim is too thin. And sometimes it was said with frustration. And once you revealed to me why, you said the rim is the thing that's going to tap the other thing. If this, and I didn't even think about it that way. You said when gardeners are moving around their pots, they're not really tapping the sides of the pots.
They can go like this to get the thing out.
To get the plant out.
Plant out.
And
see, I call it thing.
But you also said, like, look, like what touches the other side of the pot? He said the rim, and he's like, if that rim is not heavy enough and strong enough, it's going to chip. And this is why I've really loved coming here, is because it started from an aesthetic thing. I just came because I thought, I want to make these beautiful pots.
Well, the thing that what happens if somebody has any kind of sort of background in antique pottery, they're a little confused that they come here and they say, why do these look like old pots? So the reason for that is that this tool is used when you're finishing up the pot, and if you do like an angle, it'll make an arch. If you do it the other way around, it'll make a dome. And this thing is for amplifying the shape. So you can do a very subtle line. Let's say, for instance, we wanted to make a Japanese shape. We'd make a straight line, but with a little bit of a dome in it all the way up. This tool makes nuance. So when an antiquer comes in the door and says, why do these look like 18th century flower pots? It's because I'm using the same original techniques at the liquidity of moving a line.
Yeah.
So that's what makes them either pretty or dumpy or, great or not great. So
If I've had occasionally guys said, it's dumpy. But this is where.
no, but you have a good eye, so it doesn't happen much.
But that has been one of the most valuable things.
So here's one of Erica's, my wife's pots. Now she makes, thousands of pots a year. Look at the arch on this. This is the whole point of this pot. The note I gave my wife was make a leading arch all the way from the bottom to the top. Now, why are there two lines up here? This line isn't in the middle. It's way down here. It's because you're celebrating the fact that it has a spring to it. So this is a completely different idea than what's going on in this pot. This has a Dorian line. This is just a straight spring of an arch. And I tell you, if you respect humanity, they may not know what they're looking at, but they know there's motion here.
Yeah.
People recognize that something is human-made.
There's also this is what the Greeks believed. that there is an inherent beauty in nature. And if that beauty can be harnessed by human hands, it will be beautiful forever. It will not change with time. And that is why the Parthenon is still beautiful. And that truly is, when I started coming here, I felt like I was so hungry, like I wanted it so badly, and I really thought it was just about making a beautiful pot. But what has been so rewarding is to learn the function is coupled with the beauty.
Well, and just talking about simple flower pots, it will inform something that you're trying to discover from Sargent.
Yep.
I mean,
Oh,
all
yeah.
the way across the way. And everything, I mean, it's crazy to say that, you know, every piece of art that ever happens, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. I can't oversay that when somebody is not sure how to start, don't worry about starting. You make a gesture. After the first gesture happens, the two things that happen after that are what turn it into either something dumpy or something beautiful. So you've made a gesture. Where does that gesture point to? Well, then the second thing, if it has some sort of technical know-how, or or when you're thinking about doing a line in making a letter, any of those things, you start off with a gesture. Where it points to gives you a whole series of things that lets you know where the final point is going to be.
And for you, when you're throwing a pot, you're always talking about leading up to moving in this direction of the top of the pot. And when I would look at Guy's pots and just ask myself, what is it about his pots? And I don't know if you said this or I said this or many people have said this, they're singing. It feels like
there's dance. Dance is going on. So what happens in a dance? You make a gesture, there's something that gives it proportion, and then there's a leave taking. And how that the thing that you do after the beginning points at where the ending's going to be. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you could look at this stuff, you could look at Calder, you could look at Rembrandt, you could look at anything, and sort of start thinking about how things start from one place and why they end where they end. As a kid, I grew up with Alexander Calder, so I think about galaxies. So, if I were going to put something here, if you put one pot there, what makes the tension for it to make motion, right? So we need one of these. So, I mean, this just is so much fun. And it matters. The whole thing is about tension in motion. It's so much fun. Well, we have to finish with the little pots. So these baby pots, they're wonderful. We talked about this one being a rose pot. And then from that's 1 pound of clay. This is half a pound of clay. So it's called a thumb.
Oh, because
it's basically the length of a thumb. Human thumb. So that's a thumb.
Yeah.
And then half of that is called a thimble. So we have rose pots, thumbs, and thimbles. There is a literally forgotten background to these that today would be just as useful as it was when they thought of it in 1805.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating. It was fascinating for me to learn about this. Well, whether you become familiar with how these were originally used, or you have a plant at home that just needs a certain shape and size of pot, and you come here for one of these beautiful ones, seeing these things just brings so much joy.
Any flower pot is a secondary actor to the plant that's living in it. So a plant, please don't leave a plant in a plastic pot and just stick it in this thing. They want to have a light. This is a house.
Yeah.
for them to live in. And the whole point of this is that you know, a really good Shakespearean secondary actor is going, you know, while the guy's talking, or they're looking surprised, or so, you know, when we get into finally the art of, you know, making different shaped pots for different gestures, you know, if something is languid, think about a flower pot that's open and letting the thing fall out. If something is upright, the flower pot should be going, look. So the gesture of the flower pot needs to fit with the thing that's happening in it.
Yeah, that's really possible walking through your shop. there's all kinds. Guy, thank you so much.
Oh, it's so much fun having you here.
For this introduction.
If you ever meet Rajiv in person, you got to have one of his scones. He makes the best scones.
I ain't cooking scones for strangers on the sidewalk, but no,
A backpack of scones. Walk through New York. Yeah, maybe not.
No, it's not gonna happen. Anyways, this is the scones. I bake scones in the morning and lemon curd, and that's all as a gesture of gratitude for you and the family allowing me to come here and do this. Thank you, Guy.
We love it when he comes.
I love him.